Good morning, Matt Waldman. Week 6, almost totally in the books. We got a game tonight, the Jets and Bills. We'll see how that plays out with a new head coach and a play caller, Todd Downing, who will surely turn around the entire fortunes of this Jets franchise as he replaces.
Relax.
Relax, it'll be okay. I'm going to guess. I'm going to take a wild guess and say Todd Downing figures out that handing the ball to Breece Hall is probably a good starting point in getting this offense on track. But hey, what do I know? Maybe not. He did it in Tennessee. I'm just saying. He had a really good run offense in Tennessee. He has not been an inspiring guy, though. So good luck, Jets, with all that. And Jets fans, I feel
he's a placeholder for the dictator on offense.
Yeah. So Aaron Rodgers has to be in on this, right? I mean, he has to okay it all. The on-field general manager has to have final approval. It sounds like if you read something like Diana Rossini, who seems to have a lot of interest in the Jets, or in Robert Saleh's demise. But, she said that they did, put some effort in over the offseason into contacting other offensive people. She mentioned names. Arthur Smith was one of them and others, and that probably no one was all that interested. I wonder why.
Yeah, because Aaron's going to do what Aaron wants to do, for better or for worse. When you hire basically a great quarterback and you put him in there and he's the veteran, I mean, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, that's what they did. Brett Favre even, it's like they're going to do it the way they did it. You hired them to run the offense. And so look, I know everybody hates Aaron Rodgers, but I really don't give a fuck. Like, I just want the dude to, he's good at football. I know that the Giants, people are going to say, are we sure about that right now? But I think we're going to get this straightened out. We talked about this last week.
Yeah, we'll get into some things here. Let's get into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They outscored New Orleans 27-0 in the second half, racked up 594 yards of offense. Baker Mayfield threw for 325 yards, had 4 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. So what do we feel? Was Mayfield even better than he looked this week, or the interceptions like what we're going to remember?
People are going to remember the interceptions, but they shouldn't, because he threw a bad one, and then there was a tip pass, and then there was a pass that bounced off a receiver, off McMillan's hands and into a defender. But really, to me, it's not about the interceptions. When you're looking at quarterbacks most of the time, it's about how they respond to certain situations, and also how they play to create opportunities for themselves when things don't work out immediately as planned. And Baker Mayfield is better than ever in the pocket. He's climbing the pocket and creating quick opportunities for himself that are second and third chance opportunities that he wasn't doing in Cleveland. In Cleveland, he would bail, he would turn and run backwards. He would not step up and find the open man. And he's realizing now that sometimes 1 or 2 steps creates a quick opportunity that wasn't there much faster than taking 5 or 6 backwards or to the outside. And that's what he's doing so much better. I'm becoming a fan of Baker Mayfield.
So I'm just going to say, why? As I watched with the Baker show, the entire act is much easier to take in a successful circumstance, right?
Right.
So when you see, you see him at not his best, you look at his reactions and you think, man, but I see him differently in Tampa than I see him in Cleveland. I see them as far more positive, more like you, and like just watching him, just like outside of the X's and O's, just watching him take hits and the toughness that he exhibits into the medical tent, out of the medical tent, just getting back on the field. All this is very important to him. Just looks like a real good leader and a guy who his teammates respond to well.
Yeah, he's got a better pair of receivers. I mean, he's got the 2 best 1-2 combination maybe in the NFL. Apologies to maybe Philadelphia and Minnesota and Cincinnati, but they're up there. But his offensive line isn't as good.
Right.
I would argue that his offensive line isn't as good as what he had in Cleveland. His run game sure as hell isn't as good as what he had in Cleveland, but it's looking pretty good this week and could get better.
We'll talk about that. So just in general, I think we both agree. He was better than he looked this week. But like if you like squinted a little bit and avoided the interceptions, it wasn't that bad, people. It was pretty damn good, actually. Anytime you come away with a 50+ point win, something's going well. Sean Tucker, we're going to talk about now. Rachaad White missed a game with a foot injury. I've seen the interweb doctors discussing this, and nobody's dad got involved in the conversation, so I'm assuming they're semi-correct in saying it might be a midfoot sprain for Rachaad White.
That's a schadenfreude moment, isn't it? All right.
Right. So if you're not on the X, you might have missed some of the drama, and if you did, I'm happy for you. But it seems like White. I don't know that this is going to be a short-term injury. Either way. Bucky Irving played well. We wanted him to play well. He scored a touchdown, but it was Tucker, the second-year man, who leapt onto the waiver wire radar with 136 yards and a touchdown on 14 carries. Also, 3 catches for 56 yards and another touchdown on 3 targets. We talked about this guy last year as like being, of all the guys who were the undrafted free agents, there was a medical condition, something with his heart that kept teams from drafting him. But the Bucs paid, what was it, the highest bonus to sign a undrafted free agent? So they've seen something all along. Are we about to see more of it?
I think so. And I know that our buddy Dwayne McFarland described Sean Tucker as garbage time. The final thing is garbage time. I would call it closeout carries, because garbage time is when you're behind and everyone's just letting up on you. Closeout carries are, we need to run the clock out, and everyone knows we're going to run the ball, and can you do it? And certainly they tired out the Saints defense pretty well, and Tucker had some bigger creases, but he ran well. And this was a guy that, along with Jordan Mason over at Football Guys, talked about as the all waiver wire team. If you look at the running backs that were mentioned, Cam Akers, Jordan Mason, Sean Tucker, there was a couple others. I think Ray Davis might have been there. But, there's a pretty good set of guys. And Tucker, the joke I've had with my buddy Alex, who has worked with the Scouting Academy for a while with Dan Hatman, every week we've been like, the best running back on that team might be the number 3 guy. But they haven't figured that out yet. And I think this week, I think they had a moment where they're realizing Sean Tucker, obviously, they knew this. He has the best long speed and the best acceleration of the 3 backs, and that he's a pretty good runner between the tackles. It wouldn't be surprising at all. I'm totally feeling the idea that if the Bucs have an iota of let's let the competition play out rather than be loyal to the high-end draft pick, that Sean Tucker will be cutting into Rachaad White's time.
That seems like a reasonable assessment. I feel that, Matt Waldman. Spencer Rattler came in and looked pretty good. I thought he was serviceable for a half. Bucs might have figured him out a little bit in the second half. Todd Bowles said, "Nah, how about some pressure, son? Let's try some of this." And it did, it did have an impact, but just bigger picture, right? The Saints were right in going with him instead of Jake Haener. Feel it or fuck it.
Okay, I'll feel it from the standpoint of that they decided that they wanted a quarterback who was more mobile so that they could get him outside and have him create a little bit more on and off structure with some with some pieces that allowed him to be a little bit more improvisational, because that was their contention for why they started him over Haener, which is we want a guy who can create a little bit more when the play isn't perfect. But I would also say if that's the conditions you're setting, this is kind of more of a what news source do you watch and which thing do you want to say you were proven right about? Because I would say that Jake Haener probably is still the better quarterback.
And a very handsome man.
Is he really now? I've never seen him with a helmet off of him, but I did see some dude with a plaid Saints cap, and I wondered what the hell that was all about.
There's a lot of flag.
There's a lot of plaid. Right, yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
What is that all about?
Old men are asking these people to make designer choices. I don't know. I think that's what's going on. But you would think I remember our buddy Jason Wood showing up in something plaid several years ago in Las Vegas, and Jason's an avid listener of this. I'm just gonna say, Jason, I'm wearing plaid right now, but I may not be the one to dictate fashion choices.
Okay,
but
it's the crucial catch initiative of the NFL. It's a cancer supportive cancer.
Okay, well, I'm okay with that, but I don't know what Woods' excuse
thought it was something like that. It doesn't look very
I
good.
love you, Wood. I just like making fun of you. You know that. So anyway, yeah, Rattler is certainly a guy who I think can continue to grow in this offense, but yeah, he's going to need a lot of work, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if we do see Jay Kaner at some point if Rattler can't get it all together. But they have I think they have two underrated, like, developmental guys on that roster.
Okay.
Here we go.
So I feel this in that they made a decision, right? That they took a path, and I think they'll probably stick with it. So we'll see how it plays out for them. I don't know that Jake Kaner is going to change the world. Second best quarterback on the roster has a broken rib anyway. Looking at you, Taysom. Come on back, man. Make this offense work again. Also in New Orleans, we saw Chris Olave go out with a concussion early on. Thanks for that, Spencer Rattler. No, it's not Spencer Rattler. But everyone's been on Mason Tipton, as a guy that, look at him. Bub Means is a guy who came in and replaced Chris Olave. Does he have a future as a contributor in this offense, being that he's behind Olave, or will they find another role for him going forward?
I think he has a future as a contributor long term. Short term, probably not this year once Olave comes back. But what Means has always had is the ability to win after the catch. He can be physical at the catch point. There's some real skills there from the time he was at Tennessee and also at Pitt. And what I was super impressed with this week was how well he attacked the football. As Greg Olsen said, I think Greg Olsen's been reading the RSP Twitter, because he's been like, there's an epidemic of receivers who want to catch the ball close to their chest and without good attack. And I'm like, yeah, that's been kind of my bailiwick for about 5 years now when it comes to receivers doing this. It's like bad tackling that you see, like Stefon Diggs, I'm talking about you, this week. But Bub Means, yeah, the way he catches the ball is very clean, very sound, and he's getting open. So I think that there's potential for him to become a contributor, maybe a Josh Palmer type of contributor.
Interesting. Drake Maye got his first start, completed 20 of 33 passes, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions against the Texans. He ran for a team-high 38 yards, lost a fumble. So did he prove the staff right for making the switch? Feel it or fuck it?
I'd say fuck it, but I'm open to feeling it after another 3 or 4 games, because he took
hero ball. Come on.
He took a lot of pressure, and they were well behind before he did anything that I thought was super meaningful. I mean, the big plays that he had were against cover one with a single high safety, things that you would see in college, just one-on-ones, throw the ball deep. They were nice throws, but they weren't anything special in terms of reading the field or dealing with pressure. He was certainly mobile. He was tough. Over the middle, he was inaccurate for the most part, with a lot of throws over the middle. And if he continues to deal with defenses that can confuse him over the middle and also can get a lot of pressure on him, which isn't hard in New England right now with that makeshift offensive line, this is a fuck it situation. But right. I admire how he played in his first game. He did a good job for what it was.
Right. And by the way, Kayshon Boutte, 3 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown. Is this just because he's probably been working with Drake Maye a lot, not with the starters up to this point, and like the chemistry's built in? Does this bode well for Kayshon Boutte? Is he a future contributor? Feel it or fuck it, Matt Waldman.
I've always liked Kayshon Boutte, and I think that or Boutte, however you pronounce it, for my friend who wrote me the other day and said we've killed Rashee Rice and or Rashee. I still get it wrong. Rashee or Rashee Rice.
I say Rashee.
Yeah, I think it's Rashee, but we kill that. I'm gonna mispronounce Boutte too, or Booty, but either one that is correct. I think he does have a future. I think he's a kind of a mix of Robert Woods and Jarvis Landry, and I think that the fact that the offensive staff, that the coaches have put him in the game more often in the past 3 weeks, and he's starting to see a little bit more snaps and make some plays. I mean, he beat Derek Stingley one-on-one on the deep shot and looked pretty good doing it. I know some people might say, he was asleep at the end of the half, but I didn't see that. I thought he looked pretty good. So there's potential there for Boutte to be a contributor, and Lord knows that New England has a habit of just throwing receivers up on the wall and seeing what sticks. That's been their history, even though a lot of folks like Polk, but there are a lot of folks who liked a lot of the receivers who didn't do a fucking thing in New England. So
are you talking
we'll
about
find
Tyquan
out.
Thornton, who is a healthy scratch in this one?
I think I could list about 15 receivers who weren't slot receivers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. That seems to be their stock of trade, and maybe still is. So let's move on to another set of receivers, or a receiver in general. In Seattle, let me read you some numbers, Matt Waldman. DK Metcalf target share, it looks like 21%. He's got 31 catches. Tyler Lockett, 14%. He's got 26 catches. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 19%. He's got 34 catches, outproducing or out catching DK Metcalf. Is he not fulfilling his potential?
I'm totally feeling that, and he's the most frustrating player I've watched this year, and it stretches back to really his days at Ole Miss. He's a physical freak, big, strong, fast, great length to be able to go up and win footballs, and he plays like he has T-Rex arms. And it's just, I mean, you need to attack the football. And there were 2 plays against the 49ers this week, 3 actually, where he did not attack the ball the way that he's capable of. And he has shown that he's capable of using the correct attack. But it cost them scores. At least one score, because 2 were on the same drive. And I show him on Twitter, on X, showing you really why he should have attacked the ball he did. If he attacks the ball like so many of the short receivers in this game who have short man syndrome and think that they're a lot taller, if he had that in him and played to his height, he would be a wrecking machine of a wide receiver. But he doesn't do that. He, as Ray the Grouch on X responded to me saying, he plays passive, and that he's and he doesn't play physical enough. He's a finesse receiver in a big man's body, and I would say he's showing that right now, and it's sad because if he had made the play, one of the 2 plays at the end of the half that he didn't make, he would have probably helped create some momentum for the Seattle Seahawks and help keep them in the game. And his first reaction on plays is technically unsound, and it limits him. He's a very good receiver. He should be a great receiver, and that's what's frustrating.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. So Brock Purdy, looking at the season numbers to this point from a fantasy perspective, he's quarterback 7, averaging 17.6 points per game. Finished what last year? Quarterback 6, right where he is. I would like to ask you, film guy, is Brock Purdy underrated by film guys?
He is. He is. At least some of the big name film guys, like our friend of the show, Benjamin Solak. Congratulations to Ben on getting the ESPN gig. That's great. He does do great work. He does. Now, at the same time, he did right. I don't want to relitigate Brock Purdy, but he frustrates film guys because of these throws. And he showed a throw against the Seattle game to Deebo Samuel for a 76-yard touchdown, where it looks like the safety nearly cuts off the throw and the ball hangs in the air, and implies that basically Purdy got lucky and that Samuel bailed him out. But one of the things that I noted about that, and this is the thing, is that there are a lot of people who are film guys who are X's and O's guys. Their thought when they read the field is about the coverage type and the position of the player on the field in terms of where they are location-wise. But there's another added element that I think a lot of film guys need to learn about when they study quarterback play, and it's called leverage. And leverage is really the position, the body position of the defender. And when you watch the play, it's very clear that Brock Purdy manipulated the safety with his drop and the flip of his hips to make the defender think that he was going to throw a route breaking over the middle, and that the route that was next to that receiver, that was Deebo Samuel hanging in the boundary, that wasn't going to be the target. And so when he throws the ball, he has to avoid pressure and throw off his back foot down the field so it hangs. But Brock Purdy knows, based on the position of that safety, that this was the equivalent of like one-on-one coverage where the defender's like 3 steps behind, that he could afford to make that throw the way he did. And, that's the result. And I think there are a lot of things that are ignored about Purdy in and outside of structure, in the pocket, layering throws into tight windows, really anticipating at a high level. And people get wrapped up in like, Trevor Lawrence is such a good physical football player, if he were in this offense. I heard a good argument about that, but I think that Trevor Lawrence could possibly be a good argument for a guy that could end up being better than Purdy if he were in that situation. But you got to have proof that like you can make the reads that Purdy's making. And Purdy's playing at a high intellectual level, and he's a better athlete than people think. He just doesn't have a big arm.
This is our reminder that Brock Purdy was the last guy taken in his draft, and Trevor Lawrence was the first. So moving on a little bit from that, and Isaac Guerendo. So some of us who weren't smart enough to land Jordan Mason when we drafted Christian McCaffrey might have raced out to the waiver wire and stashed a share or 10 of Isaac Guerendo.
There you go.
Could he be a 1-to-1 replacement for Mason if necessary?
No, but I think he can be good enough to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah. he's not the receiver that Mason is. I still think he's figuring out how to run the 49ers system the way that Kyle Shanahan wants him to. And there's moments where I think he's a little hesitant and he's not attacking at the level that he could be, but big, strong, fast, violent runner when he wants to be. He just needs to be a little bit more decisive. And if he can grow into that, maybe down the stretch he'll be 1-to-1, at least between the tackles, but not all around.
You'll
take points. Yeah, right now I think he's like 0.49. And I think, which could be really good based on the 76-yard run he had, or whatever it was. But, yeah, he might get up to 0.7. We'll see.
Stefon Diggs coming off a game in New England where it was a run-heavy attack, and great job by Joe Mixon in his return to action after a lengthy time off. So there wasn't a lot of passing meat on the bone, but a fair amount of it went to Stefon Diggs, who had, 6 of 7, caught 6 of 7, had a touchdown. Not far off from what Tank Dell did. Is Stefon Diggs the same player in Houston as he was in Buffalo?
There are a lot of people who say that he's not, and I'm going to be open to the idea that he isn't, only because watching how he won, there's a lot of matchup-based kind of situations pre-snap where they put him in advantageous scenarios where his route was going to work against the defender's position. And I think that Stefon Diggs is still a very good player, but what we haven't seen with him is being the one-on-one Nico Collins role where you're just going to beat your man heads up and without the aid of finding advantageous leverage and position pre-snap to put him in an ideal situation. So I still need to see that he can do that before I say he hasn't lost anything. But I think the Texans are too smart to even put him in that situation very often. So that's good.
So when I say I'm not victory lapping, that's code for I'm victory lapping. But in this case, it's really not, because look, people, I've been wrong on so many damn things that if I'm right on 1%, I'm not going to get too excited. But Jayden Daniels, let's discuss him for a brief moment. Against Baltimore, he threw in the loss. He threw for a career high 269 yards and 2 scores. Is this proof? John Keim from ESPN thinks it is, that he can hurt teams when the ground game isn't working. Do you agree with that?
I think I'm leaning towards that. Yeah, I'm heading towards that direction because the Ravens defense stretched Jayden Daniels in terms of they took away the short passing. They got downhill. They stopped a lot of that little dink and dunk Cliff Kingsbury stuff pretty early and throughout the game. And they forced him to throw downfield. and Daniels did a good job of working downfield. Now, I would say, as much as I like Tony Romo's optimistic and pleasant personality, I would like him to get off of his knees when he's talking about Jayden Daniels a little bit, because it was a little much to be talking about all the manipulation that Daniels was doing, because there are a lot of plays that are embedded with lookoffs that Daniels was executing. Daniels was good, no doubt about it. And I think this was a promising development game for him. But the defense at the same time was able to limit him in key moments because they could get high pressure high in the pocket and get interior pressure. And that kept Daniels in the pocket and prevented him from being able to make the plays and throw accurately in those scenarios. And that's the next step for him. That's the difference between him and Lamar Jackson, or a Jared Goff, or a Brock Purdy, or a lot of players who are currently technically ahead of him. But the promise is there. So I like what I'm seeing, and this was a very good kind of guide marker for him, where he is and where he needs to go.
Okay, let's take this from NFL.com. Jeremy Bergman wrote this. Caleb Williams' second national window game went much better than his first. 4 weeks removed from a Sunday night football stinker in Houston, Williams lit it up in London with one of the most special performances in Bears quarterbacks history. Super hyperbolic or just hyperbolic?
Super hyperbolic. I love Caleb Williams, and I've been defending him all year. But listen, you haven't seen shit yet from Caleb Williams, other than that one throw to Keenan Allen that had everybody oohing and awing, the back shoulder on basically the seam route between a linebacker and a safety. And that was a great throw. But the rest of his game looked pretty similar to me from what I saw in the beginning when I was telling everybody to relax on Caleb Williams. He looks fine. He didn't look special. They pushed around a bad Jaguars defense. And that's the difference, is that he looks like a quarterback who's going to develop into a really good player, but hasn't really hit on the special throws that you saw at USC yet, except one today or one yesterday. And so just wait, because you haven't seen it. You haven't seen anything yet with this guy, but it was just that they played a bad team, and they performed well against a bad team, and they got Keenan Allen back. So, I mean, like, I love Caleb Williams, but the Bears fans are not a barometer for what understanding good quarterback play is. They're like Browns fans. They're held hostage. They're held hostage by their history, and it's hard for them to see things clearly sometimes. Not all of them, just some of them. And I would also think that folks who cover that beat for a long period of time may also be a little bit, have a little Stockholm syndrome from that too.
It's possible. Alec Pierce, are we still bullish on him as a wide receiver 3?
Yes, because you're going to have up and down games like this. He did, I think, create 2 DPI calls that were key in this game. And I think that, especially with Michael Pittman, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because there was rumored to be put on IR, and then he played through that game, but he did not look well. He played well. He did not look like this is going to last long term if they keep putting him in here like this, which means that Alec Pierce will probably end up in the Pittman role, and that could be a big thing. So I would hang on to this guy.
All right, fair enough. And what, just like in that same, is AD Mitchell, how close is he? I talked to beat writers almost, I think, weekly for the last 3 weeks. They think Mitchell's not far off. They think it's they still think Pierce is the better player, but they think Mitchell, in terms of separation, is doing all the same things and maybe a little bit more in that regard. What do you think about that?
Nope. I think he's a year away, which means he's not far off in my eyes, but to them, it might be far off. He trips and falls on a lot of routes that he shouldn't right now, which is indicative of a player who's thinking his way through the offense. He drops passes that he shouldn't right now. And so I think he gets speed. From a speed standpoint, he looks right. But from a technical standpoint, there's still a little bit of ways to go. He's up and down right now, and I think he'll be a good one. But I don't think this year's the year.
I think the way you say speed, oozing with with you're like trying to woo me. Stop it. Will Levis, is he worth the Titans' long-term investment, and will Hellman's get their money's worth out of his endorsement?
I think Hellman's already has. But I love that the Titans are trying to say we're going to roll with him long term. But here's the problem with this. If Will Levis keeps playing hero ball and fucking up, and then their response to his hero ball isn't to bench him and keep being aggressive downfield and throwing the way that they would expect a quarterback to make decisions and let him attack downfield, then what's going to happen is they're going to keep shortening this offense and being more conservative. And then Will Levis it's going to get to the point that the receivers aren't going to want to play football in Tennessee because they're not running their full route tree and playing to their full potential and being able to make big plays because they're enabling keeping Will Levis on the field as opposed to expecting him to play with good decision making. So to me, this is why you need to bench a player, because if you're like, there's a point where you manage what a player can and can't do, and there's a point where you go, let's just take away everything from the player and kind of play this different way and hurt our entire team as a result. And I think that's where the Titans are kind of starting to bleed over to. And I think that it's not going to work out because eventually no one's going to want to fucking play there if he keeps doing what he's doing. And even when they went downfield, he's like threw it up for grabs, even though he's telling everybody, I know I got to get better at this, but I'm still doing it. Take him off the fucking field. That's the way he's going to learn. Sometimes you got to discipline your kids, and they're not disciplining him.
I watched a post-game interview with Calvin Ridley. Could sense a little frustration there, kids. That's all I'm saying.
Calvin's easily frustrated too, so that's what I'm saying. Ain't gonna go well.
So here we go. Here's my anti-victory lap. I've been super dismissive of Kimani Vidal up to this point. Hassan Haskins had been ahead of him. Yesterday, Vidal carried the ball 4 times, 11 yards, had the 40-yard touchdown catch, really nice pass and a really nice wheel route. And took it all the way in. This was with Gus Edwards on IR for the next 4 weeks. So if you were sitting there determining which of these players you want to pick up, and by the way, Haskins played a role. It was a little smaller. He had 2 carries for 5 yards. So if you were picking somebody up on the waiver wire to maybe back J.K. Dobbins, who would it be?
Easily Vidal. Easily. I mean, one of the things is that he also had some short yardage carries that looked really strong. He's a well-built runner who's short, but he's big, and he breaks tackles. He looked good running outside. He had the burst. Catching the ball was fine. The thing that I was most impressed about, which is what I was impressed about him at Troy, was protecting the passer. He had a rep against a defensive end where he basically took that defensive end around the quarterback with great positioning and footwork. He did miss a cut block. It was kind of a difficult scenario because he shouldn't have cut him. The defender, Nick Bonito, got too far into the backfield too fast for him to slide back outside to take him on. And he should have continued running and just kind of pushed him out of the way with a stand-up game. But he tried to cut, and he had no position to explode through the defender, and he just bounced off the defender's elbow for the defender's path on the way to a sack. But that's not really his game. Like, he's a better pass protector than that. Hassan Haskins, you look at him, he's basically an earth mover, and he moves like an earth mover. So they're going to put him in short yardage situations sometimes, but Vidal and J.K. Dobbins had plenty of short yardage situations in this game, which is why their yards per carry doesn't look great. But they performed extraordinarily well in those situations. So I think it's 1-2.
Haskins gave him a little more special teams versatility than Vidal, who, did not. And now that Edwards is not in the picture, there's room. And so I've been out on Vidal just because there wasn't a path to getting there. Now that Edwards is on IR, there is a path to get there. and now maybe we'll see something. I'm not, like in deep leagues. Heck yeah, I'll take a share of Kimani Vidal right now. Let's look at the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix. Despite this, aside from endearing himself to all of us with his willingness to tell Sean Payton to go pound sand, is he playing better than it looks?
Yes, he's a scrappy player. He's competing hard. What he's doing as an athlete to avoid pressure and try and continue to find options downfield, and often doing so, is admirable, because this offensive line has not been playing well. And there were some plays that were called back that he hit, that were down the field. But this is an offense that's kind of putting training wheels on him and slowly lifting him off situationally. I think he's basically what people hoped Mitchell Trubisky would become. I think he's going to become that, and that can be a good thing. He manages the game much better. He had a bad interception where he just overthrew a receiver early in the game. Other than that, he hit some impressive throws. And the fact that he's running for his life and still like finding ways to keep them in the game, and they have a winning record, or they're close to having a winning record at this point. I think they're 3-3 right now. But they're playing 500 football, and they don't have a running game worth a shit. Their wide receiving core is either young or okay, but nothing great. There's just not a lot of great weapons right now, or young weapon. There's just young weapons. So yeah, I'm bullish on Bo Nix. I think he's a bargain in Dynasty that you could probably get him as like a moderate priced add-in on some trades, and you'll profit from it down the line.
I don't know whatever you think of Sean Payton, or whatever anybody thinks of Sean Payton, but clearly this is his guy. And he's embracing him. I think he likes his style of play. I think that whatever you think of Bo Nix as a player, having that is going to work in his favor. Apparently, this Payton guy has a pretty good history with quarterbacks. I don't know.
And here's the thing that you'll like, Bob, is that the reason that people were all up in arms about Bo Nix last week a little bit, and until it was explained, and now everyone likes it, is that people don't like conflict, and the people who do like conflict don't give a fuck, because this is a high-pressure situation.
Right.
And I didn't exactly quote you the way that I would have wanted to quote you, but I have mentioned that, that this is a scenario where it's, when you have high pressure, sometimes you've got to yell at people in the scenario that it's gone. You got to let it go and then just let it pass. And I gave an example of like working in a restaurant where we were severely understaffed, and I was in the front and handling shit that was way more than what my pay grade was. And then we had an unrealistic situation occur, and I'm trying to tell my boss, who's having to cook in the back, which wasn't his job anymore. And he was mad, and he got angry and threw a wok across the kitchen, and had it clang across the kitchen. And when the shift was over, and he was yelling, "Tell him I'm going to fire you if you have to do this." And I said, "I'm not telling him that." He's like, "No, go tell him." So I went back and I didn't tell them that, and then I came back in. But at the end of the shift, he buys me a beer. We sit in the back, don't even talk about it. He just, "I'll see you tomorrow." I'm like, "Yep, no big deal."
Right. Easy analogy here. You're sitting in your car, the mechanic's under the hood, and he's working on something, and you bump the key. And he yells at you, says, "Hey, motherfucker, I'm in here."
Yeah.
Right? It's in the moment. Something happened. He's working on something. You've interrupted him. All these things. It's a similar circumstance. People read way too much into these moments of tension in high pressure situations, collaborative efforts, even creative efforts. Like behind the scenes, Matt Waldman and I will get into these knockdown, drag out fights over the creative processes. Nah, probably not. Anyway,
no, but we do argue, but we do it for fun. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, I guess if other people heard us, they would think that we were having a conflict.
They probably would.
But we don't think that way.
Let's have a conflict here about Javonte Williams. Does he look good? Feel it or fuck it?
When he's not fumbling, he looks good. Yes, I saw some moments from him that I liked. He's looking better. Can we compromise on that?
So I was just gonna say, does he look good or is it just better? And it's where he's coming from might determine whether you think he's good or not yet. That's where I'm at.
He's looking better. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Devaughn Vele, is he a thing or not?
I think you got to keep tabs on this dude, or if you're in a code for if you're in a deep roster dynasty league, you need to add him or have him on your practice squad. Catches the ball pretty well, runs well after the catch. He's an older player, so you age heads will probably dismiss him out of hand entirely. But he's someone that runs decent routes and has just really impressed the Broncos staff, and they've told that to the beat writers all summer long, and you can see it. They see him as like a young Tim Patrick, or maybe for the Hsters, already middle-aged Tim Patrick. But
by the way, I would like you to know he still has a little something for you.
Yeah, Tim Patrick, he sure did. I've got some stuff on X already where he looked pretty good on a couple of deep routes. So yeah, Vele's worthwhile if you're in a deep league.
I don't disagree with that. All right. Keep your hand off that key, Matt Waldman. We're almost done. I don't want any trouble here. So that's it for us. You can find both of our respective works for the most part at footballguys.com.
Yours is respectful. Yes.
Matt's also found at mattwaldman.com. The Rookie Scouting Portfolio, one of the most respected publications out there when it comes to assessing rookie talent. And Matt is one of the most respected individuals in that regard. Check him out on the X at Matt Waldman. You'll see all kinds of examples of his brilliance throughout his timeline there. And you can find me also on the Daily Update podcast, 10 Minutes of News every morning, 5:30 a.m. Live streams on Tuesday at 7 p.m. on the hot seat with a guest. Saturdays, struggling to keep up with lineup questions for an hour. It's fast-paced, people. Let's go. All right, Matt. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye.
I love you, too. You embarrassed me with all that. See you.